and NCNC Pact. The Declaration of Biafra. On the 27th of May, 1967, I'm actually going to take my supposed last break. I want to say something. The propaganda of how they have tried, especially the Igbo propaganda, because there were Igbo propaganda to continue to malign Awolowo, to drag Awolowo and make Awolowo corporate, Awolowo a betrayer, Awolowo this, Awolowo that. Awolowo was very, as part of the men of that time, it was very, very clear when he met with Ojukwu that, listen, you are the guy in charge now, okay? I understand your position. I understand the situation. You see these guys, whatever their intention is, okay? It doesn't make any sense for me that it's a delegate, somebody freed by this Gowon government. I was released by him, okay? Now he sent me here to come and talk to you. You know something we can do? I will advise that you let your delegation or your delegate to attend that meeting of conference, okay? Don't withdraw from it. Now, when you are there, the West will be there too. Listen, you have your army. I am the leader of the Yorubas in the West. I do not have any army. My region is currently occupied by the northern soldiers. So if I sit down here and begin to talk to you about the secession of Biafra, it will be totally misleading and fraud. So he offered this advice. He, in fact, explained his position of how they could go about it. Ojukwu will have none of that. And not just Ojukwu, including some of his generals too. It's a done deal. The Igbos have suffered too much. The program and the rest of that. There is no way that the Igbos of Azikiwe that wanted one united Nigeria. And right now, that one Nigeria is now under the command of the North. And with this set out, killings of the Igbos and all that, it's just probably going to be a matter of time before they come down here and do same. No. We are not attending any meeting. You see the disagreement of these political leaders? Do you see what that led to? That's why they call the Biafran War the war of the egos of two men, Gowon and Ojukwu. But again, under the circumstances that they were all in, they were making decisions and things were happening so fast, so fast, that every minute, every hour was very crucial. The Declaration of Biafra. Anyway, thank you so much as well for those of you who have managed to share this. I implore those who haven't to do same, to please share, okay? What time do we have? I've got 40 minutes now to finish this book. I'm not sure I can in 40 minutes, but we agreed that we should finish the book before we take calls. So I will get on with it. The Declaration of Biafra. On the 27th May, 1967, the Eastern Region Consultative Assembly, meeting in Enugu, gave Ojukwu a mandate to declare at the earliest practical date Eastern Nigeria a free, sovereign, and independent state by the name and title of the Republic of Biafra. On the same day, Gowon responded by announcing the division of Nigeria into 12 states. In the Western region, the creation of 3 states, Lagos, Midwest, and Western states, was cosmetic, since the Midwest and Lagos were already in existence. The reconfiguration of the northern Nigeria or northern region into 6 new states, Northwest, Northeast, North Central, Kano, Benue, Plateau, and Kwara, was more administrative than political. The real change was in Ojukwu's eastern region, where 3 states were created. East Central State comprising the present eastern region, excluding Calabar, Ogoja, and Rivers provinces. Southern State comprising Calabar and Ogoja provinces, Rivers State comprising Ahoda, Brass, Degema, Ogoni, and Port Harcourt divisions. What on its face looked like an even-handed exercise to balance the numbers of states in the north and the south was in fact a maneuver to further isolate the Igbos within the eastern region by bringing the minority groups in the region onto the side of the government and leaving the Igbos potentially landlocked in the event of secession. At the same time, the areas which contained the eastern region's oil were being separated from the core Igbo areas in the new East Central States. This move had been foreseen in the Willinkins Commission report, in which the areas within the New Rivers and Southeastern states had been earmarked for special attention. In his speech announcing the creation of the new states, Gowon, in fact, made express reference to that report. The country has a long history of well-articulated demands for states. The fears of minorities were explained in great detail and set out in the report of the Willinkins Commission appointed by the British in 1958. The Willings report was, in other respects, uncannily prophetic in flagging up the threats to the country that lay ahead. Paragraph 42 was especially insightful in speaking of the absence of institutional roots and dependence upon characters who could disappear from the stage. Ojukwu and the Igbo leaders now found themselves between the devil and the deep blue sea. They could choose to remain within Nigeria in a landlocked, oil-stripped Igbo enclave, or they could gamble on succeeding with the entire old eastern region, with all Nigeria's known oil reserves. At 2 a.m. on 30th May 1967, Ojukwu declared the eastern region the sovereign states of Biafra. He did it at 2 a.m. I didn't know that. Right. Gowon's response was to draft into his administration the key political figures in the Western region and Midwest, whom he had earlier released from jail, by appointing them to the Federal Executive Council. Awolowo was given the post of Vice Chairman and Federal Minister of Finance, while Enahoro was made Information Minister. One was responsible for financing the war efforts against the other was responsible for defending it publicly. With Gowon at the head of affairs, to the outside world, it looked very much like a war between fellow Christians. Meanwhile, appointment of these Southerners to these key posts dealt a final blow to forming a common Southern front against the North. And in due course, they and other Southerners would be given the credit and the blame for the manner in which the war was prosecuted. Gowon made Awolowo the finance minister, Enahoro information minister, so that when they are fighting the war, Awolowo's name will be mentioned as the one funding and financing the war. And as they started the killings and hiding, Enahoro's words would be to tell the rest of the world that this is not ethnic cleansing. It was in fact Christian versus Christians. See the scheme? Sounds similar? Rings bell? It should ring bell. The British started it. They used the similar to dislodge some of those they found as opposition to their colonization, especially in the southern Nigeria, right? Now let's go forward. And that is why today, okay, let me go forward first. What Ojukwu had to lose from delaying secession is not clear, because there had been no more pogroms since September, October 1966. In the intervening 6 months, most Igbo survivors had returned to Igbo territory. That the events within Biafra were under the influence of fifth columnists, supporters of the federal government clandestinely worked against the Biafran regime from the inside, is strongly suggested by the timing of the declaration. Although, strictly speaking, Biafra was declared at 2 a.m. on 30th May 1967. It might as well be regarded as having occurred at the close of 29th May 1967, as at many of the significant events in the North march to political dominance in the country. The first of the North pogroms against the Igbos had occurred on the 29th May 1966, and the two which followed had been carried out on the 29th of the month. In 1962, it was on 29th May that the state of emergency was declared in the Western region, when that region came under Northern military occupation. And it was on 29th September 1967 that Enugu, the political capital of Biafra, fell to the Federal Army. Even pre-independence in 1957, the final constitutional conference had taken place on 29th September. A careful study of other key events in Nigeria's political history will highlight the recurrence of the 29th day of the month, if not 29th May itself. The significance of 29th of May is to be found in the imperial struggles between the two faiths, Islam and Christianity, and specifically in the fall on Tuesday, 29th May, 1443, of the then capital of the Christian Roman Empire, Constantinople, to the forces of Islam, led by Sultan Mehmet II. The 29th of May, therefore, appears to deeply symbolic day for the Islamic North. See? 29th May is the date of conquer, or is the significant day for the Islamic jihadists. 29th May is Democracy Day in Nigeria. 29th May. Anyway, let us continue. International oil politics. That colonial empires had ceased to be politically acceptable in the New World Order did not mean that the economic benefit from the former colonial territories were to be forsaken. On the contrary, post-war reconstruction imperatives in Europe meant that the economics of colonization was more crucial than even before. Access to crude oil, in particular, was vital. So, the announcement of the discovery of oil in Nigeria. Remember that, okay, I'll read it. Although, as we have seen, the search for oil had started in southern Nigeria as far back as 1906, and production had begun in 1908. It was only on 15th January 1956, in the last years of colonial rule, that it was announced that oil had been discovered in merchantable quantity in the Niger Delta area. The announcement would change Nigerian economics and politics forever. On 30th April 1956, Shell Darcy Petroleum Development Company changed its name to Shell British Petroleum Development Company. The importance of Nigeria's oil to Britain came into clear focus with the outbreak of new round of war between the Arabs and the Israelis in the Six-Day War in early June 1967, just weeks before the first shots were fired in the Biafran War. Virtually all the Midwest oil A third, but a growing proportion of the total production was shipped out through the Bonny terminal in the east via the Trans-Niger pipeline. The Federation's only oil refinery near Port Harcourt was also under the Biafran control. Therefore, any sanction imposed by the Nigerian government against Ojukwu was bound to boomerang on Lagos. This helps to explain why oil shipments were exempted from the general blockade of Biafra. During the month of June, while Shell BP was trying to nose its way out of its its nasty dilemma, the oil companies' principal interest was to keep the oil flowing, protect their multi-million pound installations, pay their dues, and offend neither side. Britain had been accused of aiding the Israelis and the Wilson government, already struggling with economic crisis, was thrown into further crisis as Arab states combined to close the Suez Canal and cut off its oil supplies. The economic consequences of this June week were extremely serious for Britain. The closure of the canal alone, it was authoritatively estimated, was costing Britain £20 million a month on our balance of payments. No less serious was the loss of Middle East oil. We had to seek to replace this from other areas at higher price and, in the main, at much higher freights. Supplies from Libya, the one source west of the canal, were cut for a time, nor could we make up any substantial part of the loss from Nigeria, our other short-haul source. Within weeks, the civil war there cut off all our Nigerian supplies too. We had to shop for supplies in the US and Latin America at high cost, high freight, and in competition with other hard-hit countries. We had many anxieties for the following winter. Preserve the legacy of Berlin. Against this background, the British position on Biafra's attempt to secede with all the oil which they had found was never going to be neutral. Any hope for a peaceful resolution of the standoff between the federal government and the Biafrans evaporated with this Arab-Israeli war. Any embarrassment on the part of the Wilson government over the fact that even as the drums of war against Biafra were being beaten, the same government was resisting calls for a military response to White Rhodesia's own secession in November 1965, or at least an economic blockade, made no difference. Energy security apart, there was the other imperative of preserving the legacy of the Berlin Conference in defiance of the windows of change. A dominant ethnic groups with a distinct language, logic of Biafra was otherwise inarguable, by the way. So they said, with a population of 15 million, a dominant ethnic group with a distinct language, with oil in abundance, it was a viable independent state. Biafra would have been the true independent African country, and British would not have it, because they would have been so rich. They would be like, they will have the military, they have the oil, they have the sea, they have everything. They would have been the truly independent country in Africa. The one that would possibly be giving terms and conditions to the British, Americans, all of these world powers. No, they won't let that happen. That was not going to happen. No, it wasn't going to happen. So, the Igbo people's political case, having been slaughtered in great numbers in the north, was as legitimate as those of the Jews in Nazi Germany. Indeed, more so because theirs was not an appeal for the creation of a homeland, but for a release from an involuntary political union. Further, Southern Cameroons had been released from the same political union by a referendum, while Eastern Nigeria was to be locked into the union by a full blown war. The Organization for African Unity, OAU, had been established in 1963 to preserve the integrity of the African states, which had been forged through the Berlin Conference principles. Before this, in 1949, the British Commonwealth had been established effectively as a holding station for former British colonies as they left the Europe. In reality, it was empire-like, operating under a more inclusive brand. You know something? We currently still have about 40 pages to go. That means I could only do just about 15 to 20 pages in the last hour. So I think we should open the line. Let's open the line and have a chat. I will finish the book tomorrow. We have 44 pages to go. So I could only manage to get us down to 263. All right, so I'm just going to be reading faster. So let's enjoy it. Let's have a chat around it, okay? So the next thing now is going to be the British parliamentary debate on Biafra. Okay? So thank you so much for this and for hearing and participating so far. So I want to quickly ask us as well. Let's see. I'm going to open the line. Okay, I'm going to open the line. And we can have a chat for the next hour. Just the next 1 hour or 50 minutes, of course. So while I also take my break. So, Unasiam, we have found ourselves here, and we can all see how we got here. There's a part of that book. You see, this book is so extensive that it also covered the return to democracy, the Chibok girls, the kidnapping of the Chibok girls, the influx of the Fulani, the second phase of the influx of the Fulani terrorists to the southern part of Nigeria, the renewal of Uthman Danfodio's jihad. It's inside this book. We'll finish it tomorrow. Okay? We will. So thank you so much for your time. And let me just take a bit of a stretch break, okay? So if you are, and then when I get back, I'll take calls, okay? You can react to this if you want. And if you don't want to write, that's all right too.
My name is Nnamdi. And the reason why we're here today is to protest the killing of innocent women and children, and men for that matter, all over Nigeria, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. We are not happy. We are not pleased with what is happening. And that is why we're here today. As you can see, there are a lot of Nigerians who are protesting about the killing of families. People who are determined to tear the country apart violently, and it is not something that we support. It is not something that we would like to see continue, and we are here today to send a clear message to the Nigerian government, to the High Commissioner, that what is happening in the country is unacceptable, and we cannot accept it. If that continues, it will lead to the violent disintegration of the country. There will be no more Nigeria for anyone to go to. There will be no Nigeria for anyone to refer to. In fact, what is happening in Somalia today will be like a tea party. So we cannot allow this nonsense to continue. Something has to be done. And the consequences of the actions of terrorism in Nigeria must be driven home to the people, so that even the terrorists themselves will be able to understand that there is no mileage in where they're going. The only thing they can accomplish is the breakup of Nigeria. If they think that they can cower people, if they think they can force people to be coerced into a religion which is not theirs, then they are clearly mistaken. We are asking for peace. We are asking for people to get together. We are asking for everybody who loves Nigeria, who is associated with that country, to please prevail upon terrorism in Nigeria so we can bring it to an end. That is why a multitude of Nigerians are gathered here today. Those of us in the UK are determined to work with the government for peace. We are determined to work with the international community for peace. But one thing we cannot stomach is a repeat of 1966. What is happening today in Nigeria was the reason why Nigeria fought a bitter civil war for 3 years between 1967 and 1970. If this continues, there will be another civil war in Nigeria. And this time around, no place will be safe in Nigeria. This time around, nobody will be safe in Nigeria. So it is imperative that everybody who has the interest of the country at heart acts now and immediately to stop this nonsense from continuing.
Thank you, Jerry, Mazi. So we'll continue to put that, I will continue to show you that no matter what the propaganda that the entire system, propaganda didn't start now. It's always been there, all right? And that's why you have to understand what it means when we talk about the establishment. The establishment is these guys you are seeing, right? All these criminals in charge who have the agenda of perpetuating this kind of feudalism on all of us. So if you dare try to say no to it, they will charge you for treason, or they will even attempt to kill you, or they will kill you. So we have seen that happen many times, and indeed, there'll be, there'll be a lot of us that none of this will really deter us. Okay, it is so important that we continue to put this out there, so that when you want to argue around these contraptions and all of the lies we have been told and we were made to believe and even live, an enlightened mind will never be an easy prey for the rogues. So thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. Okay, I am going to see you later this evening. You all have a wonderful morning.
Mayegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Mayegun làwa mọ̀ làmọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Mayegun ti dé o, ọ̀rẹ́ ará ìlú.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Mayegun já wa sí.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Bó bá ṣe eré, àní Mayegun máa wí.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré, wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Mayegun Diary, Diary Politico.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Mayegun.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o, kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Àní Mayegun làwa mọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Mayegun Diary, Nayibi #1.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé. Mayegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Mayegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Lórí YouTube.
Mayegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Mayegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Mayegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Bí pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Mayegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Bí gómìnà gbówó jẹ.
Mayegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Ọlọ́pàá tí ń gba rìbá.
Mayegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Mayegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Mayegun ti dé.
Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú.
Mayegun
àní ẹ̀ súnrakì.
Máyégún ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì.
Máyégún ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀ súnrakì.
Máyégún ti dé.
Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o, Máyégún ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀, Máyégún ó sọ pé wọ́n ò bẹ́ẹ̀. Oníkanṣá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, fáwọn ará ìlú tó gbé wọn débẹ̀ o.
Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní má ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ òní fi wọ́n níran.
Ha! Kì máa yí ṣeré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣẹ̀fẹ̀. Kì máa yí ṣeré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣẹ̀fẹ̀. Ẹni bá ti lè lẹ́bọ̀ lẹ́rù o, ọmọ bá dèrò kàṣàyè tú wọn síta.
Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ òní fi wọ́n níran.
Tẹnitẹni ọmọ Máyégún ọ̀rẹ́ ara ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni mo fọlọ́hún ṣọ́ ẹ̀ bá kìlẹ́bù. Lóòótọ́ olódodo ìlú ọ̀tá ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni ìwọ ṣá máa ń ṣọ́ra kò sì mọ́ bẹ̀rù. Bọ́tà ń lérí bóníṣègùn lé káwọn mọ̀mọ́ fi ṣera wọn ni ó ti dẹrùn tí wọn ò gbọ́dọ̀ sì mọ́ bẹ̀. Èèpo ọ̀bọ lọmọ bá dérò tàjẹ́ ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́, ó ti dọba lórí àbínú ẹni kò sì mọ́ fòyà. Àìsíwọ́lu ní ẹnìkẹ́ ìgbódì ẹyin lábàrá o, ó kó ẹni tó bá dán o àkàmù. Máyégún ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ súnrakì.